are going to move on to the last page that we have to style and make responsive. And that is going to be our individual project page. And this one's going to be a little bit more complicated because unlike the other pages, there's a lot going on here. Excuse me, still feeling sick somehow. All right. So the first thing I need to do is I see that I've been logged out. So if I refresh my page, I'm going to get my error message. That's all right. I'm going to log back in. And now we can get back to work. All right, so let's go to a project. And I think what I'm going to start with is this to-do list column. Okay. So let me go ahead and get some of these functions minimized. And I am going to go ahead and take a look. All right, so this is, we get to the point where we have our status column and they're in this columns box, okay? So what I wanna do is I want to figure out where is this breakpoint for when my design starts getting a little bit messed up, all right? So we get there pretty quickly. Okay, wait, that was like zoomed in. Okay. So I feel like that looks bad. So honestly, 10:25. All right, so let's try to do a breakpoint around 10:25 and see where we get. So Chakra UI media query. Let's go and steal this. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say flex wrap is going to be wrap. And I'm going to see what that looks like. Right. So it takes a while to wrap, but then we do get, it's going to wrap one at a time. So I think we need to figure out if that's what we want. So then let's go to this status column here and let's add a like minimum width is going to be, let's say 200 pixels. Okay. So anytime, let's go ahead and inspect and see how large it is. All right, so it's 207 right now. I already feel like that's a little small, so let's do minimum width of 250. Okay, so anytime it starts getting too small, it's gonna wrap the to-do list column. And honestly, I feel like that's kind of nice because it doesn't turn them all into a column, so we don't even need to use the media query then. And then anytime they get too small, they automatically move. Okay. So I think that looks good. Except I feel like that got really, so how big is that? Take a look, lots of guessing and checking. So that's 266, which is probably fine. So then now I'm gonna go and look at it on the different screen types. So you can see that on a iPhone, we're gonna have it like this. So let's go and let's add a user story. All right, create user story. Let's go ahead and add nope, not a description. Let's add a task. All right, let's mark this as done. Okay. And let's close out of the modal. All right, so now we have one in each one. In my opinion, that looks pretty good. This looks terrible, but that's okay. I'm fine with the gap between 10 being them, but I don't like that on the bottom there's no margin. So let's go back to project and let's go ahead and add margin bottom 10. And so that should give us that looks better. So it's not like just floating there. So let's go ahead and look at some of the different phone sizes. All right, that looks good. I'm trying to see if there is, okay, so it looks like margin X is 10. Okay. Curious as to why margin X is 10. So let's go ahead and back it out. I think it's just around, it's always margin X is 10. I just don't know if when the phone size is super small, if we need it to be 10. So where, at what point does it get so small that, right now I kind of want to try minimum with 300 pixels. Maybe 275, let's try that. Okay. That looks better. I just didn't like how small it was getting. Okay. So that looks good. All right. I don't feel like I mind the margin width being 10 until it's super small like this. And then I feel like this margin being 10 is like too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a media query. And I am going to make it like if larger than 500. Then I'm going to import media query. And I'm going to go down here, and where it says margin X 10, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say is larger than 500. Yeah, let's keep it at 10. Otherwise, let's move it down to 4. All right, so now you can see it's taking up less room in terms of margining, but it looks better. So if we look on a different phone, yeah, that looks pretty good in my opinion. Perfect. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to tackle this top part here. So I'm going to kind of look at what it looks like when it's looking good. And I think this delete project button here is kind of my biggest issue. On one hand, I don't even really like it where it's at. So it makes me wonder if I should just be moving it in terms of design anyway. So I feel like on my feature modal, my delete feature button's at the bottom, and I kind of prefer that. So I think I'm going to have it move down, and that will solve some of my issue in terms of the responsiveness. So I need to find it first, which it should be. Probably missing it, and you're probably yelling at your computer screen. Okay, so here is, it is. So let's get rid of that. And then let's add it down here. Okay, and then I think we want to, let's just do width 100%. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, I like that. And if it gets too small, let's look at it on, so we want it to be, let's make this wider. Yeah, that looks good. But now we also need to add a margin bottom of 10 to the button. So that's not, there we go. All right, so now you can tell that this is already looking better too. So I kind of want to go and get some larger text so that way I can test out, because also the description of your project is not always going to be super short. All right, so the first thing I'm noticing is that this isn't being an input is an issue. Okay. So in terms of, though, that response being responsive, I feel like that looks good. All right, let's look on it on some other things. Okay. Yeah, that looks good. Let's look on it on the Galaxy Fold, which is always our issue. But yeah, if you look, when I click on this, it's just going to give me this top one, which I don't like. So what we're going to want to do is, instead of input, we actually are going to want to use text area. And we don't need type because text area. Okay. And then we're going to want to say variant filled. All right, that looks better. Except here, let's close out of DevTools. Okay, so it has our little scroll bar to use, but I don't, and you can pull down, but I think I'm taking issue with where this is. Because I almost want this to be, all right, so this is defined height. So I'm going to take height away. Can I do height fit content? Yeah, let's try that. No. All right, so let's look into that now. So see, front end work always ends up in a rabbit hole. You kind of start, like, I feel like I can do a good job of being like, oh, this back end feature will take me X amount of hours because I know in my head all of the steps. But when you get into design, it really is one of those things where it can take me a very long time to decide how I want it. Act. So let's do chakra, UI, text area height, fit content. All right, I'm going to read just this article or this Reddit thread, and if it's not working, then, and it doesn't look like we have a quick solution to it, so I think that's going to be fine. Number of lines. Can I do number of lines and do like 20? Interesting. Will that specifically only give me 20 lines? All right, well, I'm gonna have to play around with that in my own time so I don't end up filming a video that takes us 500 years. Okay, but I think that looks pretty good. I am not sold on this edit button, so I think I want to do some editing. I think what I might want to do is I might want to add like a name for description, or okay, is it that the icon button is centering? So let me try to just get rid of this align item center and see if that makes me feel better about what I'm doing. So let me turn it back to, this is my description. Let me paste in all of that. All right, I think it might just be that I just don't like I didn't like the center because I think it looks better now. Okay, so that looks good, and as I shrink my page, it looks good too. So I'm gonna say that this main project page is now responsive, and then we will move on to our final piece of the puzzle, which will be making our feature modal responsive. Okay, and we will do that in the next video.